The NHL trade deadline is fast approaching, and the Boston Bruins are in a very interesting spot. Today on the podcast, I'm going to talk about what's more likely, the Boston Bruins as buyers or sellers at the NHL trade deadline. Let's get into it on a brand new episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoke to Beat. Today is Wednesday, February 28th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. The Bruins are back in town and getting ready to take on Bruce Cassidy's Vegas Golden Knights tomorrow at TD Garden. It's a game we'll preview on tomorrow's podcast, as well as updating the power rankings. For today, we're playing a little game called What's More Likely, and the subject is the NHL Trade Deadline. Before we get into that, quick reminder, you can find the podcast at Locked NHL Bruins on social media, and you can find me, my dad jokes, hockey tweets at Ian C. McLaren. Now, the Boston Bruins are in a very interesting spot as we approach the trade deadline, which is, 9 days away, Monday, March 8th. The Bruins find themselves in a similar position they were last season, in the standings at least. Right now, they sit first in the Atlantic Division, actually in a tie for first in the Atlantic Division, 82 points, level with the Florida Panthers. That's 1 point better than second place New York Rangers. So, by that measure, you would think, the Bruins should be buyers. But at the same time, their position cap-wise, in terms of draft picks and assets, it's a bit difficult to make some moves. So let's start with the buyer side of things. What would make the Bruins buyers here ahead of the trade deadline? Well, they certainly have some needs. Quite a few needs, in fact. You could argue that they should add down the middle. Charlie Coyle and Pavel Zacha have played very well this season. They're both on track for career years. But the depth there, especially after the injury to 19-year-old Matt Poitras, who, I wasn't sure they were going to be relying on him much come playoff time anyways. It gets a bit thin. Morgan Geekie is playing center on the third line. You have Jesper Boqvist on the fourth line. He's been making an impact offensively, but his defensive game and his face-off proficiency leaves quite a bit to be desired. So down the middle, you could certainly be adding and looking to buy. You should also be looking to add a scoring winger. In recent games, they've had Anthony Richard up on the first line. And most recently, he was bumped down to the second line. You've had Danton Heiner up there. You've had Justin Brazeau up there for a time. They have 5 pretty good forwards in their top 6. Well, one elite forward in David Pastrnak, a high-end winger in Brad Marchand, Jake DeBrusk, Zacha, and Coyle, who I mentioned already. But then in the top 6, you're really rotating Richard, Heinen, Trent Frederick's been up there as well. They could really use a scoring winger to add to this group as well. On the back end, there's obviously injuries right now to Hampus Lindholm. Matt Grzelcyk's been banged up a little bit. Derek Forbort has not been, let's just say it, he has not been good. Kevin Shattenkirk has been decent in certain situations, but he's been rotating in and out as an extra guy. Charlie McAvoy, obviously all world, but that defense core could really use some support as well. With Mason Lohrei, Parker Witherspoon in the mix, Grzelcyk, again, kind of banged up. They could use the top 4 defensemen as well as some defensive depth. So there is no shortage of needs for this Bruins team. And you look at where they are in the standings and you say, hey, maybe they have as good of a shot as anyone in the East to come out and compete for the Stanley Cup, especially with the goaltending that they have. That has been the main reason why they're this good so far this season. And if they can get that quality goaltending in the playoffs, if they can maybe use the tandem a bit more by implementing a rotation in the playoffs, unlike what they did last season, which was stick with Linus Ullmark for way too long, then you might have something there. There is a very real argument to be made that the Bruins should be buyers. And it's not even just whether or not they should be buyers, but really prioritizing where they should be upgrading the roster. Cam Neely said it the other day, there's a lot of areas that could use some improvement. It's just a matter of where you prioritize where you're going to buy. Do they look down the middle and look at Adam Henrique in Anaheim or Jack Roslovic in Columbus, perhaps Alex Wenberg in Seattle? Do they look to the wing and, try to add an Anthony Duclair from San Jose? Do they try to go tough and look at Liam O'Brien in Arizona? Do they focus on the blue line and try to add Noah Hannafin or some defensive depth in Ilya Lyubushkin? There's so many holes that they could try to fill here at the deadline, which would lead us to argue that it's more likely that they will be buyers than sellers. However, there's a very real argument to be made for being sellers at the trade deadline. And part of that is because they really don't have much to work with to buy. That's a problem this year. It could be a problem even going into next year. And we'll discuss that here as the podcast continues. Game Time is the best place to go for all your ticketing needs this year. You shouldn't have to worry about when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you this year. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee, taking all the guesswork out of buying tickets. Now, with that Game Time guarantee, it means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. I love the view from your seat. You know exactly what to expect when you arrive at the venue. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, just create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Game Time, last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. FanDuel has you covered for all the best betting options out there. You can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. You can make some bets on the NHL as well. MLB season right around the corner. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, let's continue our discussion here on what's more likely for the Boston Bruins at the NHL trade deadline, buyers or sellers. We've made a case for buying, plenty of holes to fill down the middle on the wings, on the blue line. The one area of complete strength that they have at the moment is in net. Maybe that's where you subtract. Let's discuss. Now, the Bruins are still kind of feeling the effects of, well, not even kind of, they're definitely feeling the effects of going all in and more last season. We've already passed the 1-year anniversary of the Dmitry Orlov Garnet Hathaway deal with the Washington Capitals. That move was made to shore up the blue line, add some grit to the bottom six. And it seemed as though the Bruins, had made their move and were ready to head into the playoffs with that group. An injury to Taylor Hall allowed them to put him on LTIR and go even further in by making a trade with the Detroit Red Wings for Tyler Bertuzzi, which sacrificed their first-round pick in 2024. So that is going to be going to the Detroit Red Wings. It was top 10 protected or bottom 10 protected, but that will not be the case. So Detroit will get their first-round pick, Boston's first-round pick. Boston also does not have a second-round pick. That was from a trade that was made in 2022 to acquire Hampus Lindholm. Their third-round pick this year was sent away in the trade for Orlov and Hathaway. They also don't have a seventh-round pick this year, as that was sent to Arizona to acquire Michael Callahan a couple years ago. So they only have 3 picks this year, 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds. So right there, that eliminates a good chunk of your buying capabilities. It also opens up an opportunity to recoup some picks by selling. Another thing keeping the Bruins from being buyers is a limited cap space. At the moment, they have projected cap space of $61,558. Very, very limited cap space. And a big part of that is the fact that they have some dead cap money, $333,000 to Mike Riley, but also bonus overages, and that's the big one for Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci, $4.5 million. That is a very good player that you could add. Pavel Zacha right now, 4.75. You could add a player of his caliber. The Bruins don't have. They're playing kind of shorthanded because they have $4.5 million less to work with than other teams. They do have some pending unrestricted free agents that could draw some interest if they feel so inclined. Jake DeBrusk being one, James Van Riemsdyk, Danton Heinen, and Anthony Richard, who, hey, maybe he's been playing up in the lineup right now as a bit of a showcase. On the blue line, you have Matt Grzelcyk, Derek Forbort, and Kevin Shattenkirk. Now, I know we just discussed the fact that they need to add on the blue line, but if they're selling, they could recoup some picks, create some cap space in order to add at the same time. They need to subtract some cap in order to add. Sending out some of these pending unrestricted free agents may be the key there. Who knows? That is certainly a possibility. Is it likely that the Bruins will trade Jake DeBrusk? I mean, only if it is a kind of a hockey deal that will help them as well this season. I don't think they would just trade him for picks or prospects, although it might be the smart play because you are risking losing him for nothing on the open market. What if Edmonton or Calgary comes calling in the summer? They're offering DeBrusk more than what the Bruins are willing to pay. You could lose the guy for nothing. When it comes to Derek Forbort, Matt Grzelcyk, that's really not much of a concern because you could argue that they should be parting ways with one or both of those players. Kevin Shattenkirk was brought in as like likely a one and done kind of thing on a value deal. Danton Heinen, same thing. Van Riemsdyk, Heinen, those are probably guys you want to keep because obviously you're already looking for wingers. Those are guys making a combined $1.775 million. You can get great value out of them come playoff time. DeBrusk, a bit dicier because you sometimes don't quite know what you're going to get from him. And again, you risk losing him for nothing on in free agency. So is it worth selling to recoup, a second or third round pick this year? Heck, maybe even a first round pick in 2024. And recalling a Georgi Merkulov or a Fabian Lysell and see what you have in those guys. If you sell, then you open up opportunities for younger players to come up and get some valuable playoff experience because they are heading to the playoffs, barring a complete collapse. There's some merit to that argument, I think. If it seems as though DeBrusk isn't going to re-sign or he's going to ask for what the Bruins can't offer, even though the cap's going up, maybe that's a consideration. Is it likely that the Bruins will be sellers? Well, no. You probably don't want to have the optics of selling as a playoff team. You want to add in any way that you can. So it's probably more likely that they will be buyers than sellers. What they should do, and we'll talk about this here as the podcast continues, is perhaps be swappers. And I'll explain that here as the podcast continues. If you're looking to level up your ride, then there's no better place than eBay Motors. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. If you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. They have over 122 million parts for your ride, and you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. The eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. So while it's more likely that the Bruins will be buyers than sellers at the NHL trade deadline, I'm here to argue that they should be swappers. That could be accomplished with Jake DeBrusk, trading him to another playoff-bound team for maybe someone who's a bit cheaper that could still help the team this year. I know Warren Fogle has been floated in Edmonton. I know the Oilers have long wanted to add the hometown kid to the roster. That could be something there. But what has been talked about in increasing volume, not just whispers anymore, but this is becoming a conversation, is perhaps subtracting from an area of strength, or you could even call it a luxury at the moment for the Bruins, which is the goaltending. Jeremy Swayman is a restricted free agent, and he is going to be looking to get a significant raise on his current $3.475 million contract that was awarded in arbitration after what he's described as, a pretty tough process that he doesn't want any of his teammates to go through. So he's probably going to be at least what Linus Ullmark is right now at $5 million. Ullmark has one more season on that deal. So the question is, do you want to keep the tandem together for as long as possible and pay upwards of $10, $12 million for your goaltending tandem next season? Or do you put all your faith in Swayman moving forward and swap Ullmark, who would be incredibly attractive on the trade market, and add down the middle or on the blue line or on the wings? Right now, Ullmark has a 16-team no-trade list. Goes down to 15 teams next season. So there is, almost half the league that the Bruins could trade him to without having to get him to waive his no trade. If a team is on his list that is interested, then they would have to approach him. I don't want this to happen. I love this goaltending tandem that we have. I love the relationship that they have built. I love the goalie hugs. But there is something to be said about only one goalie can play at a time during the playoffs. It's good to have that backup for sure. It's good to have measures in place if one of them falters or if one is injured. And again, you look back at the playoffs last year and see what difference it might have made if Jim Montgomery had gone to Jeremy Swayman sooner instead of riding Linus Ullmark past Game 5 into Game 6. Do you take that area of strength, even a luxury, and trade it for somewhere that you can upgrade elsewhere? Swapping. I would love to see them swap either Forbort or Grzelcyk to make up some cap space. Whether or not there's a market for either of those two, it's highly debatable, highly unlikely even. But with DeBrusk and Ullmark, you could swap so that you're getting something while not risking losing DeBrusk for nothing, or taking that luxury item. It's essentially like, I have two. We have same thing here. We have a Breville coffee maker, and we just ordered an espresso. We don't need both of those. So you put the Breville, the older one, on Facebook Marketplace, see what you can get for it, and upgrade somewhere else. Pretty simple. Will the Bruins do that? We'll have to wait and see. Don Sweeney has his work cut out for him over the next several days. And we know that he is indeed proactive in the past with the Charlie Coyle deal, Hampus Lindholm, Taylor Hall. But you look at where the Bruins are in the standings, and you look at where they are, underlying numbers, what the plan was coming into this year. It was always intended to be a transition year, a bridge year. If the Bruins are committed to that, and if they recognize that, they recognize that this team is not indeed a true cup contender. They're a playoff team. They're not bad. They're not great. They would need a lot of things to work in their favor in order to go on a deep run. You can make the argument that they should treat their pending free agents as available. You can still look to improve the team. You could recall some guys from the AHL to give them some playoff experience, because if those are your core guys moving forward, there's no harm in giving Mason Lohrei some playoff minutes, getting Fabian Lysell in the mix for some meaningful NHL action before he's called upon to be relied on much more in the future. All that to say, I really have no idea what the Bruins are going to do prior to the trade deadline, and you should definitely subscribe to Locked On Boston Bruins, because we will be covering things daily, be posting shorts on YouTube if anything breaks, if there's any hot rumors that come up, and you can be sure to get all the latest here on Locked On Boston Bruins, because we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. Please do hit me up on social media or on the YouTube comments. Let me know your thoughts. Should the Bruins be buyers or sellers or swappers? And we'll be back tomorrow to update the power rankings, as well as preview a game against the Kraken. I hope you're all having a great week. Take care of yourselves. We'll talk to you again here tomorrow on Locked On Boston Bruins.